All right, here we are on to root position part writing with roots of a third and sixth apart. And here's the magical thing we need to remember about roots that are a third and sixth apart. They usually share two common tones. So we can always remember that there. Well, that makes sense, right? So let's look at a particular chord here over on our staff and see why that is. So if we're talking about root motion of a third sixth, we can talk about C major. Here's our 1 chord, here's our 3 chord. Let's look at our 1 chord, C major, and here's our 3 chord. And we can see right here that we have in common 2 chords. So if we just lay that out, and again, any of these combinations would be the same. A 1 chord and a 6 chord. All right, we have 2 common tones, 1 chord and a 3 chord. We're always going to have 2 common tones between root motion of a third and sixth. Now, it's not to say that we'll always be able to keep these common tones. We should be able to keep at least one of them. Here's an example. 1 moving to 6 in G major, and you can see the 2 common tones kept at the top, and then we have stepwise motion in our tenor voice, and for B, it's very similar. Again, we keep common tones of B and D, B in the soprano, D in the tenor, and we have stepwise motion here otherwise. So very close relationship between these 2 chords. They have a lot in common just because of the nature of the movement, right? Think about this. Tertian harmonies, the harmonies that we use, are built on thirds. And so if we go to a chord that's a third away, it would follow that we're going to have some chords or some notes in common. They talk a little bit about 3-part textures and about omitting the 5th, and we kind of already pointed to this. But let's do some examples here. Okay, so all of these have root motion of a 4th or 5th, and let's zoom in here and do this first one. Again, I would map out what your notes are and where you're going. E flat, G, B flat in the key of B flat major. And you can see here G and B flat are in common between the 2. Whoops. G and B flat are common. So let's see if we can keep those. Well, we can definitely keep the G, and we've already have the B flat in common here. So that's great. We got this one, we got this one. We have 1 E flat, but remember, we always want to, or we want to try to double that root when we're in root position, and so we can do it that way. And I'm sorry, I didn't play some of the chords in the last one. I should have done that. Moving on to 2, we have C, E flat, and G. What do we have in common between the 2 chords? Well, E flat and G, we can see, are in common. Can we keep any of those common tones? Well, we can certainly keep the E flat, and we can also keep the G, so these can stay in common between the 2. Now 2 moving to 5, can we keep common tones in B flat major, F, A, C? And you can see here now we no longer have root motion of a third, but rather we have root motion of a 4th. So our plans are going to change a little bit. We still want to look for those common tones, and as you can see here, they've already kept the common tone for us, so there's no need for us to do any searching here. And in this case, you can see here, they've asked us to indicate the type of, the technique we're using for our root motion of a 4th or 5th. Now, at the end of the day, we're going to be combining all of these types of root motion to do our part writing. So it's important to know all of them. Okay, so let's look here. We already have C, so please don't double the C down here. That doesn't make any sense because we don't need to double our chordal 5th. We want to double our root. Okay, so let's just kind of go through some things here. If we do this, this should work just fine. And always be on the lookout for those parallel octaves and parallel 5ths. Here's my octave between the 2 keys. One of those notes is held over, so we have oblique motion, so we don't need to worry about this. So that would be okay there. Now, what are we missing? We have a doubled root. We have our chordal 5ths. We're missing our A. And so really the only possibility for A is to go right there. I don't think it would be okay to switch them because it would create some awkward voice leading and some leapiness between some of the notes. So I think this is the closest, most compact way to part write this particular example. Okay, so if you're looking at this, if we're trying to identify the technique used here for our root motion of a 4th, what do? We have a common tone, we have stepwise, so that was technique number 1, common tone and stepwise. Let's do one more. Let's do the second one in F sharp minor. Okay, root motion of a third here, and a third, and then we have a fifth at the end. So we have a third, third, and fifth. So we can kind of map that out. So again, remember, thirds will keep common tones, F sharp, A, and C for our first chord, and D, F sharp, and A for our second chord. F sharp and A are kept in common. Can we keep those? We can try to keep this one, and it looks like we can keep that one too. So we kept two common tones. Again, not always possible. Sounds pretty good. I like that movement. Okay, now root position the third again. B, D, F sharp. And D and F sharp are our common tones between the two. Can we keep F sharp? Yes, and we also keep D. Nice. So, and of course we did our D, we did our F sharp. Now we need a doubled B, and there it is. And I didn't do that for this last one, but we do want to make sure we double that root. And finally, root motion of a fifth. And what can we do? This is F sharp, A, and C sharp. Okay, and so can we keep anything from our previous chord? I would say yes. We can keep the F sharp, common tone there. Okay, what do we need? We doubled our F sharp. We have a C sharp, so we need that A, which is left over, and that will work perfectly because then we'll have stepwise motion here. And again, we've used technique number one, stepwise common tone. And that sounds like this. And it might be nice to listen through to all of the voices as you play this too. Ooh, kind of a boring alto line there. Nice tenor line. The bass line, of course, for all of these is going to be a little leapy because we're dealing in root position. So there you have it. You can do some of the other ones if you'd like, but you will be doing this for homework as well. Remember, root motion of a third, sixth, two common tones. Look for those. You can't always keep them, but it's good if you can. All right, I'm going to do one more video on seconds and sevenths, and let me know if you have any questions.